Hey guys, this is the story behind the internet myth Polybius, the mind-controlling arcade cabinet. Yeah, we're starting out with the mind control because that's how we start any new channel, right? In 1981, a new game started popping up in a few arcades around the suburbs of Portland, Oregon. Now you have to keep in mind that this is when arcade games were at their peak. It was a multi-billion-dollar industry not only here in the US, but all around the world. What people found were discrete black cabinets with no discernible graphics except for the name Polybius on the marquee. The cabinet was supposedly made by a company called Sinneschlossen. Sinneschlossen? That's very German.
Yeah, it means sensory deletion.
Nothing like a mind-controlling arcade cabinet that the company's name is Sensory Deletion. Besides that, there's not much known about the game. Now, the gameplay itself was described as abstract, flashy, very unlike anything else out there with some puzzle-like aspects. In many ways, this sounds similar to Tempest, which is very conveniently placed behind me because Matt thinks ahead. Polybius was also described as incredibly addicting. There are reports of long lines to play the games and people even getting into fights over who would be next to play. Like fights, right? Like fights?
Fisticuffs.
Fisticuffs? Did they say fisticuffs in the 80s?
Yeah.
Shortly after the game's release, players started reporting some truly horrible side effects. Things like amnesia, night terrors, hallucinations. There was even a reported suicide. People reported regularly seeing men in black visiting the machines, collecting data, or something else equally nefarious. This led to rumors that the cabinet was actually created by the government to aid in brainwashing, or subliminal messaging, or some Sinneschlossen. As quickly as they appeared, the Polybius cabinets vanished without a trace. Fast forward to 1998, and on the arcade-based forum coinop.org, an entire post was dedicated to Polybius and the mystery behind it. It wasn't until 2006 that someone stepped forward to claim at least partial responsibility for Polybius. A user by the name of Stephen Roach wrote a very in-depth post on that same forum where he detailed some of the history and the origins of Polybius. According to Roach, Sinneschlossen, a German company, was based in the Czech Republic, and it was contracted by an unnamed South American game developer to develop Polybius, which was then on the behalf of the US government. They quickly pulled the game after some troubling reports, including a 13-year-old boy who suffered from epilepsy after playing the game. Things quickly went downhill from here. Employees felt that they had created a monster, and the entire Sinneschlossen company was quickly disbanded. The problem is that the CoinOp post is the very first record of Polybius ever existing, and that was posted well over a decade after the original cabinets were supposedly in Portland. Now, some could argue that in a pre-internet era, things just weren't as well preserved as they are today, but that really doesn't hold up very well. There were a number of arcade-specific publications that were around in the early 80s, and not a single one of them had any mention whatsoever of Polybius. There are also several other holes in Roach's story. In addition to misspelling Sinneschlossen, which to be fair is a very difficult word to spell, he also specifically references a programmer who went to a university, and that university has no record of that guy ever even showing up. In fact, there's no record of a company named Sinneschlossen ever even existing. Maybe it was blacklisted out of existence by the secret government agents. Lastly, no authentic ROM of Polybius has ever been discovered. However, that hasn't stopped the cult following around the game, which is developed on the internet, so much so in fact that someone has actually developed a fan-made version of what the game should have been. On top of that, there's a download link in the description to check it out if you'd like, but be warned, if you get yourself Sinneschlossened, then I take no responsibility for the horror that is about to unfold. There have been a handful of Polybius cabinets found in the wild, but they've all been proven to be fake. Some of them are actually pretty good fakes though. In fact, someone who almost purchased one of these Polybius cabinets is Steven, the owner of the Lost Levels arcade that we're so fortunate enough to be able to shoot in today. Where did you actually find the Polybius?
At an auction. I heard about lore already, and I was like, I've heard about this. I should grab this. It went for only $600.
Oh, that's not bad for an arcade
I
cabinet.
should have totally just got it. I just didn't pull the trigger. I think we threw a bid in there for $4, and we just let it go. But we instantly regretted it after the auction. We were like, what have we done?
Were you able to play it? Like, did it look realistic?
Oh, we played it, and even had it was a reproduction like they all are. But we played it, and they did a good job because that had all the little permit stickers from like Oregon all over it.
Maybe it was the real thing, and you almost got mind controlled. You almost got Sinneschlossen. So where did this myth come from? Well, it seems like Polybius is an amalgam of actual real-life events. First of all, the government actually was doing tests on arcade games in the 1980s. Back in 1980, Atari developed the very first-person shooter, a tank simulator called Battlezone, and the US government was very interested in using that for their own, well, I don't want to say training purposes is a little bit rudimentary, but they were very interested in the game. The goal was to train soldiers on the Bradley fighting vehicle, a combat vehicle which was actually kind of similar to a tank in a lot of ways. Secondly, there were FBI agents or men in black inspecting arcade cabinets at the time. This had nothing to do with gathering mind control data. There were real issues with gambling and money laundering which were happening at some arcades around the country. The US has a long history of battling obscure gambling, going all the way back to raiding pinball machines in the 1940s. Some arcades had even rigged their machines to pay out in coins as opposed to points, and one of the #1 machines under investigation was Tempest. There also were confirmed cases of gamers getting sick while trying to get some sick high scores in the arcades. In 1981, a gamer in an arcade in Portland was hospitalized. Now, was this an attempt for mind control? No, he was playing to try to get a super high score and sat for several days eating nothing but, well, nothing actually. He just drank orange juice and Coke. That's not good. You shouldn't do that. What really brings the myth together is that Portland actually was a very key testing market for new arcade cabinets. A bill of sale confirms that there were prototype Tempest cabinets installed in Portland arcades in 1981. Notably, these prototype cabinets often had fake names on them. They were black, nondescript, with some very generic looking graphics. Sound like a certain Polybius cabinet by chance? And that, my friends, is the story of the internet myth, the legend that is Polybius. Was it an attempt by the government to get some mind control action in 1981? Or was it a bunch of people who misremember playing an early version of Tempest? Spoiler alert, probably the second one. But hopefully you enjoyed the very first episode of This Is, and if you did, make sure to hit that subscribe button to see some more interesting Sinneschlossen activity. I don't have a great pitch for this. Just subscribe, please. Or we'll Sinneschlossen you. No, that's too threatening. We can't threaten the audience, can we? Please subscribe. No Sinneschlossen will be threatened by anyone on the This Is channel. We're all very nice and friendly, and lots of learning and cool facts. And Sinneschlossen.